Okay, it is 10:08 a.m. and I want to make an update with a trade I had with AMC. I did two things wrong here. One, I was not sized incorrectly in that I didn't have the right amount of shares, and number two, I didn't do the best with my selling. I had it's not a really bad mistake, but I would have liked it if I followed it perfectly. And one part, I didn't necessarily trade the complete size because I've been moving money between accounts because I'm self-employed. I have a business and I have to pay the IRS a whole bunch of money at once. So I'm still moving money around, so I didn't really necessarily want to trade the proper size because if I was going to do that, at that point I wouldn't have any cash available in the cash account here to maybe trade anything that could happen tomorrow. So that was the case with that with AMC. But why did I trade AMC? Well, I just saw the downtrend that I had here. I didn't trade this, but I did like how it proved that this thing will follow a trend line, and that when it kind of broke past the trend line here, the downtrending trend line, it did try to hold itself together, play off of 24 and uptrend. It did get to VWAP. This one did play out. I hesitated. I didn't want to necessarily trade it. It just didn't seem too ideal. And I didn't like how it had that wick right here at this 23.87, and then it would come back and everything. I don't like how it had two more wicks before it turned around and shot all the way to VWAP, but it did do it. But when it dropped here, I had more interest in it because now it broke further past 24. There could be some panic selling, and then at that point I had a trend line ready too, and this could have been like the head of inverse head and shoulders. Let me get rid of this trend line to not make it so messy, but this could have been the head of an inverse head and shoulders, shoulder head. A little more speculative because it can continue to keep dropping, and then it uptrends. Ideally it gets to VWAP or maybe even above it, and then it makes a shoulder, but I'm just trading the head part. And I did have an entry at 957, 23.75 and a half. So right here I was in it right around here, this level right here at 957. When it got to the level here and it, started to look like it was going to turn around, and it also broke the trend line, most importantly, not just the level 2 turnaround and the turnaround in terms of the price action, but it broke this downtrending trend line as well. And I was in it at that price. And my level to cut would have been if it were to have broken under the wick right here. So if it were to have broken that, maybe it'll continue the downtrend. So at that point, I'll be out of the trade. And I did not, again, trade the proper risk level because if I had 10 shares at that 23, what was it, 70? Yes, I guess 77 because that was when I put my limit price at, but it wasn't where I got filled. Worst case, it breaks 23.55. I'm out at 23.45. So right now it's 237. Right, so I guess $3. I guess it was actually closer to the $5 risk level than I was, but you can see how, I didn't trade a proper amount of shares. I guess maybe 15 shares. I thought it was like half of what I was supposed to be, but it did decide the uptrend, which was great. And then I drew a trend line from the corner of this candle to the corner of the next uptrending candle, and I did, just to be more patient, decide to sell half of my position at 958, and that was in this candle, and I sold at 23.93. The issue was is that I didn't change the shares from 10 to 5 and then sell, half of the position. I still had it at 10. So what ended up happening is that I sold everything at that price level. What I wanted to do is just sell half so that I can be more patient. If it breaks the trend line and it downtrends, I don't have to sell for a loss ideally. And, if it continues to move towards the upside, at least, I protected myself by selling half here. And then, sure, I didn't get the best price because I sold half here and it uptrends to VWAP, but at least if it were to have broken under and failed, I didn't sell everything at the bottom or when I had to cut the trade. So that was the idea with that. And so when it broke this trend line officially here, I wanted to sell the other, what I thought I had left 5 shares around the same price level, and it didn't go through because obviously I sold everything here. So again, I should have had more shares with this one, and on top of that, I didn't do the best with my selling. I should have had 2 sales instead of 1. And it did decide to downtrend. It totally downtrended. It broke the trend line and it turned around. And at this point, I don't really want to mess with it, even though this could be the inverse head and shoulders now. Looking at it at this point, the shoulder head and maybe the shoulder here. And then the goal again is VWAP, but it doesn't have to do it. It could just never touch VWAP, although this one isn't too far away, so it could try to do something. And now that it's uptrending here, I'm too late to it. Ideally, I would have been in at this, 2364 level. So, yeah, that's the case with that. And I like how I made enough money to, cover those other 4 trades I had the past 2 days that didn't work out with the listed stocks. So that's pretty nice again. The idea that I have small red trades, but when I have a green trade, it's much bigger than my red trades and it makes it up. Ideally, I can continue that path. It won't be perfect. I'm sure, I might mess up at some point, but if I do it more often than not, then I think that's a good thing. And yeah, that's pretty much the case with that with AMC here. I'll be watching just to see if it gets to VWAP, whether I'm in the setup or not. As for the other ones, I have no interest in this. Maybe if it was better, if it had like a better daily chart, I would consider something where maybe it breaks perhaps this trend line, right? And now it's consolidating and then it can uptrend and maybe get to VWAP. It could do it. I'm not saying it won't, but I just think it would be better if it had a nicer daily chart. I would be more interested in considering a setup like that. I did have an interest with DPLS for morning panic bounce play, but I didn't like how it was trading. The price action looked kind of wrong, and I left that alone. Nothing nice with MULN, if you ask me, that I wouldn't consider. ILUS could be something if it later in the day breaks the 16.5 level and it has like a nice volume price action. Maybe best case scenario, they have news come out in the middle of the day, then it just breaks it and does something nice, but I don't think that will really do it. I did have an interest in this one, but it looks like the volume dried up, so I'll probably be removing this one. That's all I have for right now. One trade with AMC, 2 things I could have done better. And yeah, just wiped out the other 4 tiny red trades I had trading listed stocks. I'm not the best with listed stocks compared to OTCs. I feel much better trading OTCs, but there's no real nice OTC setups right now, and why not practice on some listed setups? And yeah, definitely have those 2 mistakes there, but I do like the other things that I did with that trade. Okay, it is 11:37 a.m. and it might be the last before I do a final update. And I had a trade, a very speculative size with ISPC. It was just 5 shares, and I am trying to keep cash on this account while money is being sent to it, so I can be able to trade normal sizes. But this was something that I would have traded a speculative size anyway. And this was an inverse head and shoulders. I saw the downtrend here. I saw, okay, broke the trend line. It wasn't that nice, but, I saw it later around here. And when I saw it here, I said, okay, this could be an inverse head and shoulder. Shoulder, head, shoulder. It might not work out. This one can continue the breakdown. It doesn't have the best daily chart. The volume is there. It's picking up, but it doesn't have to work. Best case scenario, though, it gets past VWAP. And that will be super profitable. And I thought, all right, well, I want to be a part of the setup, but I'm only going to throw 5 shares at it just to see if it could work and I could get the trading experience. So I was long at 10.59 and I was in 5 shares at 4.17. 10.59. Mind you, this thing does not trade with volume. At least when I was in, it just barely traded any volume. I was right here at 10.59 at 4.17. I was in right here at 4.17, 10.59. And, it looks like it could be the inverse head and shoulder. Shoulder, head, and the shoulder. It did downtrend a little. And after placing the order, because I'm packaging items right now, I just decided to put a stop at 409, which was below the day low right here. If it were to have been at 409, then I would have a ideal market sell order. It was a stop, so I would get out. There is this thing, and it is true, that market makers can't see your stops. So sometimes if a market maker sees a nice juicy amount of stops at a certain price, they might actually go to that level and, just to get them executed. But I figured if I'm going to put a stop at 409, they're going to have to break the pattern, the inverse head and shoulders, if they care about it. Of course, they might not care, but they're going to have to break the pattern just to get to me so I could then market sell my 5 shares. Now, it's not an exact science with brokers. You know, it's not like 5 shares went through here. It's probably like 100 share prints with your broker, and it's I don't want to get into it. It's a complicated thing, but it's not like I had 50,000 share stop at 409. So then they might be more inclined to break my, the pattern here, my setup, just to get me out. I only had 5 shares, so maybe it showed 100 share stop or something to the market makers. I just decided to put a stop because this thing is trading super slow. The pattern could play out, and if it's going to fail, not work out, so then fine, it breaks the level here and I get out. I started to look at it later, and it was starting to work right here. Again, I was in at 11:01, so actually 10:59. That's when I placed my stop. I was in right here 10:59. It took a while. I mean, I would not. I don't think I would have sat this long just waiting for this to do something. I was, doing other things. But then when it was around 11:14, I did get out at 4:20, the 5 shares. Right here, 11:14. It just looked like it was gonna break the trend line, and it did break under it, as you can see. And I got out before I actually did it. Not a bad sell at 420. It did start the uptrend and get as high as the 423 level. And it did drop one more time. I had no interest in this anymore. This would have been like a double bottom off of the right shoulder, which isn't really ideal. But it's doing it now. It's actually trying to make a move towards VWAP. Very, you know, freaky price action, but it's trying to do it, which is cool. And because it is a low float, listed stock, it's gonna do stuff like this, trade with a spread and really uptrend. But that's pretty cool. It's actually doing it much more. Again, my sell was at 420 right here, and that was in the 430s. But I wanted to have been a part of this. It would have been ideal if this happened instead of this, and then that would be super nice. And then I'd have a trend line, and then maybe something like this, right? Perhaps. Maybe I would have cut it there. I'd still be in the setup, but again, it would have been nice if this happened here, but that's fine. That's about it. As for the other ones, I don't want to make it too long. Nothing really has been, on my mind besides this one with ISPC. ILUS broke down. It would have been nice if it broke above, which is fine. Yeah, that's about it. I'll make an update probably at the market close because I have to go to the garage and do some other things. But if there's a really nice setup in the meantime, I might, trade that and make an update. Otherwise, this is probably it for right now. And as for how much I made, 15 pennies. It was just 5 shares. I'll make an update later. Okay, it is 7:31 p.m. and I'm here to call it off. Overall, I am up on the day, $1.93, and that was with 2 listed stock trades and a small $5 risk level that I did not do with either one of these. With AMC, I traded what ended up being, let me just see. It ended up being a $3.20 risk level if it were to have broken the wick right here, I believe is when I traded it, and that would have been fine, and some slippage as well. I just wasn't sized in appropriately, and that's fine. I need to move money around, and then I can be able to trade regular sizes, according to my $5 risk level at the moment, and not worry about not having cash in the cash accounts. And on top of that, I did have that other trade with ISPC, and that was a really small speculative size right here. And my buy was around this 1059 level, and I had my sell right here, and it did do it later. And this is cool. I'm not going to be like, oh, I was on the right track. This was a completely different thing. I think news came out or something because it just woke up and it had a lot of volume and it just shot up. This was not something I was looking at, but this is a nice move from the 440s to the 560s regardless. Maybe like a VWAP breakout. I don't know. That's not something I would normally be interested in. And yeah, that's about it. It wasn't really anything else that I wanted to trade. Nothing really nice. And yeah, unfortunately, there just haven't really been super cool OTC setups, which is what I like to trade more, but it's fine. I was able to practice with my day trading and listed setups with $5 risk level. Today's actually the last day that I'm a part of the Tim Challenge program. When you enter the program, it lasts for a year. And I don't think I'm going to renew it. I feel like I don't want to sound stuck up, but I just feel like I learned everything that I need to learn, and I just have to keep going forward. And maybe it's even better because I'm going to be more on my own, although I'll still be a part of the penny stock and silver program because I did join that before I joined a challenge. So yeah, that's about it. I did make back, all my money from Profitly, and Profitly, it shows right here. When I first started the challenge and everything, I was down $1,400 and I had that break. You can watch my video where I talk about why I'm making these videos, and I did briefly get past it right here not too long ago in January, but then I kind of had that $75 loss when I was accidentally trading a $3,000 position instead of a $300 position. And I kind of made my way back, so I still have a long way to go. At least I'm in the green now. I might dip under the green and end up in the red a few times, but this looks like a breakout if you ask me. It looks like an inverse head and shoulders, right? A shoulder, head, and then a shoulder. Maybe a second high or low, and now it's like breaking. It broke the neckline, but now it's like going green on the day. I don't know. I have to keep going, but I'm pretty thankful that I was able to make all of this back. And I did join a challenge back in April, which was around right here, I believe. Right around here. It was like April 1st, the first day of April. Actually, let's just find out right here. Or maybe I can just use this. Right, April 1st to today. Okay, that did not do what I wanted it to do. Okay, that clearly does not work on the website, but I did make everything back. And yeah, let's try to get that breakouts and keep going from there and not come back anytime soon, ideally. But yeah, that's about it. We're going to call it off right here. Again, just a small green day. It's nice that I made back the last 4 trades that I did. Right, that didn't work out at all. Right, I had these right here. 1, 2, 3. Should be 4. I'll check that later, but yeah, that was about it. Oh no, actually, this one did work out. I just didn't make much. I had 3 red trades, and then this one was a scratch. Not the best sell. Okay, I don't want to drag this on. That's all I have for today.